Let me tell you something that might just save your life. Paddy the Baddy walked into that cutting process like a warrior, and I respect the man's heart. I genuinely do. But what happened to his body during that extreme weight cut? That was not discipline. That was not toughness. That was a man systematically dismantling the most sophisticated machine ever built by nature. Brick by brick, organ by organ, cell by cell. And millions of people watched it, cheered for it, and then went home and tried to copy it. That terrifies me. That should terrify you. Because here is the truth that nobody in that spotlight wants to say out loud. Extreme weight loss done wrong does not make you a warrior. It makes you a fool with good intentions. And I have spent over 3 decades in gyms, in hospitals, in rehabilitation centers, watching good people with warrior hearts destroy warrior bodies because they followed the wrong blueprint. I am not here to attack Paddy. I am here to attack the method. And I am here to make absolutely sure that you, sitting wherever you are right now, never mistake suffering for progress again. Now. Before we go any further, let me tell you who I am and why I have earned the right to stand in front of you and speak these words. I was not born with discipline. I was not born with a six-pack or a love of early mornings. I was born soft. I grew up in a house where food was love, and love meant seconds, and seconds meant a boy who could not run the length of a football pitch without stopping to breathe. At 17 years old, I weighed nearly 130 kilograms. My knees ached. My confidence was non-existent. I wore baggy shirts in summer so nobody could see the shape of me. And the worst part? I had accepted it. I had looked in the mirror and made peace with a version of myself that was slowly dying, and I called that peace. I called it comfort, but it was not comfort. It was surrender. And you know what happened next? A man changed my life with 9 words. My uncle, a no-nonsense man who had served in the military for 20 years, looked at me one afternoon and said, "Your body is a vehicle. You are the driver." That was it. 9 words. But those 9 words cracked something open inside me that had been sealed shut since childhood. Because suddenly, I understood. The body is not your enemy. The body is not your burden. The body is the most loyal, most responsive, most miraculous vehicle ever assembled, and you are either maintaining it or you are neglecting it. There is no middle ground. There is no pause button. Every single day, every meal, every hour of sleep, every choice you make is either building that vehicle or breaking it down. And I had been breaking mine down for 17 years. So I started. Not perfectly, not dramatically. I started badly, actually. I made every mistake that Paddy's team made, that millions of desperate people make every single day. I starved myself. I dehydrated myself. I overtrained until my joints screamed. I lost weight fast, yes. I lost 12 kilograms in 3 weeks and I thought I was a genius. I thought I had cracked the code, and then I collapsed during a training session, and a doctor looked at my blood work and told me that what I had lost was not primarily fat. It was water. It was muscle. It was electrolytes. It was the scaffolding of a functioning human body. He said, "You have not lost fat. You have lost yourself." That sentence echoed in my mind for 30 years. And every time I watch a fighter go through a brutal weight cut, every time I see a celebrity crash diet for a movie role, every time a young person posts their extreme transformation online and the comments fill with fire emojis, I hear that sentence again. You have not lost fat. You have lost yourself. Now let me tell you something about what Paddy actually did, because I want you to understand this from a science perspective, not a tabloid perspective. Paddy McCorkindale, known to the world as Paddy the Baddy, is a phenomenally talented mixed martial artist. The man's charisma is off the charts. His heart inside that octagon is undeniable. But MMA fighters, especially those competing at lower weight classes, engage in some of the most physiologically extreme pre-competition rituals that sport has ever normalized. We are talking about severe caloric restriction combined with aggressive water cutting, sometimes losing 5, 6, 7 kilograms of water weight in the final 48 hours before a weigh-in. Saunas, sweatsuits, extreme food restriction, and then a frantic rehydration window before the fight itself. Here is what most people do not realize when they watch this and call it discipline. The human body is approximately 60% water. Your brain is nearly 75% water. Your muscles, the very tissue that allows Paddy to throw those beautiful combinations, are approximately 79% water. When you aggressively dehydrate the body, you are not just losing water weight, you are compromising every single system simultaneously. Cognitive function drops, reaction time slows, muscular power decreases, cardiovascular efficiency tanks. Your kidneys, which are responsible for filtering waste products from your blood, begin to struggle under the pressure. Your electrolyte balance, the delicate symphony of sodium, potassium, magnesium, and calcium that allows your heart to beat in rhythm, gets thrown into dangerous imbalance. And the caloric restriction that accompanies this? Listen carefully. When you drop calories dramatically and suddenly, your body does not say, "Wonderful, we shall burn the fat reserves now." Your body says, "Emergency, survival mode activated." Because your body does not know the difference between a planned diet and a famine. It only knows threat. And when it perceives threat, it does the most logical thing an organism under starvation conditions can do. It slows the metabolism, it preserves fat, and it burns muscle for fuel instead. Because muscle is metabolically expensive to maintain, and in a survival scenario, your body is trying to cut costs. So the very tissue you need to perform, to compete, to function at the highest level, becomes fuel for a crisis that you created artificially. This is the brutal irony of extreme weight cutting. You are destroying performance in order to hit a number on a scale. And then you step on a scale at the weigh-in, you look incredible, and 12 hours later, when the fight actually happens, your body is still in recovery mode, your muscles are still rehydrating unevenly, your brain is still coming back online. You are fighting at 60% of your actual capability because you spent the previous month teaching your body that starvation is normal. But here is what truly makes me angry when this gets celebrated on social media, and then ordinary people, people who are not elite fighters with medical teams, try to replicate it at home for a beach holiday or a wedding, or because somebody called them fat once. Ordinary people do not have the cushion that professional athletes have. They do not have team physicians monitoring electrolyte levels. They do not have structured refeeding protocols. They do not have years of base fitness underpinning their attempt. They have YouTube videos, Instagram posts, and willpower alone. And willpower alone against the full force of your body's survival instincts is a fight you will eventually lose, every time. Not because you are weak, but because your body is extraordinarily strong at protecting itself, and extreme tactics trigger that protection mechanism, not fat loss. Now let me destroy some myths, because the myths are what kill people's progress long before the extreme methods get the chance to. The first myth is that faster is better. That if you lose weight fast, you are doing it right. This is one of the most dangerous lies ever told in the fitness industry. And the fitness industry told it deliberately because fast results sell products. Fast results generate viral content. Fast results keep you coming back to purchase the next solution when the first one inevitably fails. The truth is that sustainable fat loss, real loss of adipose tissue without the corresponding loss of lean muscle mass, happens at a rate of approximately 0.5 kilogram to 1 kilogram per week. That is the range where your body is losing primarily fat, maintaining muscle, and not triggering the starvation alarm that reverses all your progress. That pace feels frustratingly slow. But you know what? 1 kilogram a week is 52 kilograms a year. Tell me that is slow. Tell me that is not a transformation. Tell me that is not a completely different human body and a completely different human life. The tortoise does not just win the race. The tortoise wins the rest of its life. The second myth is that sweat equals fat loss. I cannot tell you how many times I have seen people sitting in saunas in thick sweatsuits believing that they are burning fat. You are not burning fat. You are losing water. The moment you drink anything, you regain every gram of that weight. Sweat is not fat leaving your body. Sweat is your body's cooling system working. It is the radiator on your engine doing its job. If you are losing fat, you would never feel it leaving. Fat loss is a metabolic process that happens quietly, invisibly, continuously, when your caloric and hormonal environment is correctly managed over time. The third myth, and this one is specifically relevant to anyone watching Paddy and thinking about copying the approach, is that extreme restriction shows willpower and character. I want to completely dismantle this idea. Starving yourself is not a demonstration of willpower. In fact, from a neuroscientific perspective, chronic caloric restriction actually degrades your decision-making capacity, your emotional regulation, and your willpower over time. The prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain responsible for rational decision-making and impulse control, requires glucose to function properly. When you chronically restrict calories, you are running your control center on empty. You are not showing strength. You are running a complex machine on no fuel and calling the engine damage a feature. Real willpower is not the ability to starve. Real willpower is the ability to be consistent when the results are slow. Real willpower is choosing the grilled protein when the chips smell incredible. Real willpower is waking up at 6 in the morning to train when every fiber of your being wants to stay horizontal. That is the quiet discipline that nobody makes documentaries about. That is the kind that actually changes bodies and lives. And you know what? Let me address you directly. Because I know you are making excuses. I know because I made them all, every single one. You say you do not have time. Let me tell you something. You have the same 24 hours that every elite athlete, every successful person, every person who has ever transformed their body has had. Time is not your problem. Priorities are your problem. You have time for 3 hours of television in the evening. You have time to scroll through your phone for 40 minutes in the morning. You have time to sit in traffic. You have time. What you have not yet decided is that your body is worth a portion of that time. And until you make that decision, no program, no diet, no motivational speech, including this one, will make a single difference to your life. You say you are too old. Let me introduce you to science, because science disagrees with you completely. Skeletal muscle responds to resistance training stimulus at every age. Research has demonstrated measurable improvements in muscle mass, bone density, cardiovascular efficiency, and metabolic rate in individuals well into their 70s and 80s. The body does not suddenly lose the capacity for adaptation. It slows, yes. Recovery takes longer. The magnitude of change is different. But the directional capacity, the ability to move from worse to better, from weaker to stronger, from unhealthy to vital, that never stops. What stops is not your biology. What stops is your belief. And belief, unlike muscle, does not require a gym. It just requires a decision. You say you cannot afford it. You cannot afford a gym membership, organic food, supplements, a personal trainer, and you know what? Fair enough. I am not going to dismiss the reality of financial constraints on people's lives. But let me ask you this. Can you afford the floor? Can you afford the pavement outside your front door? Can you afford a liter of water? Because a press-up costs nothing. A bodyweight squat costs nothing. A walk costs nothing. Hunger costs nothing. The absolute baseline of fitness, the foundation before any gym, any equipment, any supplement even enters the conversation, is free. It has always been free. The people who transform their bodies in prison yards, in refugee camps, in tiny apartments with no equipment, they remind us that the resource we claim we lack is not money. It is commitment. Now, I want to talk to you about what a real, sustainable, human approach to fat loss and physical transformation actually looks like. Because after everything I have told you about what not to do, you deserve a clear picture of what to do instead. Your metabolism is a fire. Think of it that way. A real fire in a real fireplace. Now, if you throw massive amounts of wood on that fire all at once and then starve it of oxygen, the fire chokes and dies. But if you feed it consistently, regular amounts, quality fuel, you maintain the airflow, you tend to it, that fire burns steadily and powerfully, hour after hour, day after day. Your metabolism works the same way. Consistent meals of appropriate caloric density, distributed across the day, keep the metabolic fire burning efficiently. The moment you crash diet, you are throwing a wet blanket over your own fire. The moment you skip meals repeatedly, you are starving your furnace. And a cold furnace burns nothing. Protein is the most important macronutrient for anyone trying to change their body composition, not because of supplements, not because of powders, not because of anything the fitness industry is trying to sell you, but because protein is the primary building block of muscle tissue, and muscle tissue is your metabolic engine. Every 100 grams of lean muscle mass on your body burns additional calories at rest, simply to sustain itself. Building and maintaining muscle mass is the most powerful metabolic investment you can make. And you build muscle through resistance training combined with adequate protein intake, not through starving, not through extreme cardio, not through sweatsuits and saunas, through progressive, consistent, intelligent resistance training, combined with eating enough protein to give your body the raw materials to build and maintain that tissue. Now I want to address Paddy's techniques specifically from a structural standpoint, because beyond the metabolic consequences, there are physiological risks that I see glossed over whenever these methods get celebrated. Severe dehydration elevates the concentration of everything in your blood. Your blood becomes thicker. Your heart has to work significantly harder to pump it. The risk of cardiac stress events increases. Your kidneys, which filter approximately 180 liters of blood per day, begin to struggle when the fluid volume drops dramatically and the concentration of waste products rises. Acute kidney injury is a genuine, documented risk of aggressive dehydration. It is not a theoretical risk. It is something that sports medicine physicians treat in fighters regularly. And for a non-athlete attempting to replicate these methods without medical supervision, the risk profile is dramatically higher. The hormonal disruption from extreme caloric restriction is equally serious. Leptin, the hormone responsible for signaling satiety and regulating your long-term energy balance, drops significantly during aggressive caloric restriction. This means that your hunger signals amplify, your sense of fullness disappears, and your motivation to move decreases, all at the same time. Your cortisol, the stress hormone, rises in response to the starvation signal, which promotes fat storage, particularly around the abdominal region, and breaks down muscle tissue. Your thyroid hormones, which regulate the overall speed of your metabolism, downregulate to conserve energy. And your testosterone, the anabolic hormone critical for muscle preservation and recovery in both men and women, drops. Every single hormonal change that extreme restriction triggers is a change that works against fat loss and against performance. And then the rebound. Oh, the rebound! Because here is what most people do not realize about crash diets and extreme cuts. The body remembers. After every extreme restriction phase, your body increases its fat storage efficiency. It becomes better at extracting calories from food. It becomes better at storing energy as fat rather than burning it. This is adaptive thermogenesis. This is your body learning from the trauma of the restriction and protecting itself more aggressively the next time. This is why the person who crashes their diet repeatedly finds it progressively harder to lose fat with each attempt. They have educated their body in the art of surviving famine, and their body has become extraordinarily good at it. Now let me tell you something about motivation, because I know that is the next excuse waiting in line. Motivation is the most unreliable tool in the entire human psychological arsenal. It comes, it goes, it is weather dependent, it is mood dependent, it is sleep dependent. Waiting for motivation to start is like waiting for perfect weather to leave the house. You will wait your entire life. The people who transform their bodies do not have more motivation than you. They have built systems that do not require motivation. They have built habits so ingrained that the action happens before the feeling catches up. They do not feel like training at 6 in the morning. They train at 6 in the morning because they built a system that puts them in their shoes at 5:59. The feeling follows the action. It does not precede it. And when the plateau comes, because the plateau always comes, they do not panic. They do not abandon the system and search for something more extreme. They understand that a plateau is simply your body adapting to a consistent stimulus, and the solution is not extremity, it is adjustment, a slight increase in training intensity, a minor modification in caloric intake, a change in the training stimulus to challenge the body in a new way. The plateau is not a signal that the method has failed. The plateau is a signal that the body has succeeded in adapting, and now it is time to give it a new challenge. That is not failure. That is progress. I want you to close your eyes for a moment and picture two versions of yourself. Not the version you are now, two possible future versions. Version 1 chose the extreme route, crash dieted before summer, before the event, before the photograph, lost weight fast, looked good briefly, felt terrible throughout. The weight came back within months, and it brought friends. The metabolism slowed. The relationship with food became complicated, anxious, binary, fit or fat, good or bad, binge or restrict. The body began to show the signs of yo-yo dieting: loose skin from rapid weight changes, muscle loss from repeated restriction, fatigue that never quite went away, hormonal dysregulation, a constant background hum of guilt around eating. At 50, this version of you is exhausted. The joints hurt from the abuse, the energy is low, the confidence is fragile and dependent on the number on a scale, and the scale fluctuates, so the confidence fluctuates, so the life fluctuates. Version 1 spent 30 years fighting their body and never made peace. Version 2 chose the slow road, chose consistency over speed, made incremental changes that became habits, that became identity. Trained 3 times a week, nothing heroic, nothing extreme, just consistent, ate with intention, not with guilt. Built muscle gradually, lost fat gradually, and 1 year later looked different, 2 years later looked dramatically different, 5 years later had become a different person entirely. At 50, this version of you is vital. The joints are strong because the muscles surrounding them were built properly. The energy is reliable because the metabolism was trained, not destroyed. The relationship with food is uncomplicated. You eat to fuel a body you respect. You do not fear food. You do not worship food. You use it. At 65, This version of you is still training, still moving, still strong. You are not just living longer. You are living better in every year of that longer life. Which version do you choose? Because here is what I need you to understand with absolute clarity. Both roads begin right now. Version 1 begins with the shortcut you are thinking about, the crash diet, the extreme method, the thing that worked for Paddy, because Paddy has a medical team, a structured rehydration protocol, 15 years of base fitness, and a contractual obligation to perform 12 hours later. Version 2 begins with a single decision to do one thing correctly today. Not everything. One thing. Listen carefully. I am going to give you the most important piece of actionable advice in this entire speech, and I want you to write it somewhere. Simplicity sustained beats complexity abandoned. Every single time. Every single time. A perfect diet that you abandon in 3 weeks has done less for your body than an imperfect diet you maintain for 3 years. A perfect training program that you quit after a month has built less fitness than a simple, boring, consistent program you follow for 2 years. The fitness industry does not want you to know this because simplicity cannot be packaged and sold repeatedly. But the truth is that the fundamentals, a caloric intake slightly below your maintenance needs, a protein intake sufficient to support muscle mass, resistance training 2 to 4 times per week, 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep, adequate hydration, and consistent movement throughout your day produce extraordinary results when applied consistently over time. Not extraordinary results in 3 weeks, extraordinary results in 3 years. And 3 years from now, the time will have passed regardless of what you choose to do with it. Now let me tell you about someone who walked into my life about 4 years ago. A woman in her early 50s. She had been on every diet, tried every extreme method, gone through cycles of restriction and binge eating for nearly 2 decades. She was metabolically damaged from years of abuse. Her doctor had told her she was pre-diabetic. Her relationship with food was the most complicated relationship in her life. She told me she felt like a failure. She had been fighting this battle for 20 years and losing. Here is what I told her. I said, "You have not been failing for 20 years. You have been succeeding at the wrong method for 20 years. The method failed you. The method is wrong. Not you." And then we built the simplest possible structure together. We ate more food, not less. We chose foods that kept blood sugar stable and hunger manageable. We trained lightly. Nothing that would trigger her cortisol through the roof, just movement her body could tolerate and recover from. We prioritized sleep. We drank water. We kept records not to punish but to understand, and we were patient. 12 months later, she had lost 19 kilograms, not from starvation, from healing. Her blood sugar had normalized. Her doctor took her off the pre-diabetes watch list. She told me she had not felt this way since her 30s. She said, "I stopped fighting my body and started working with it." That sentence might be the most profound thing a client has ever said to me. Your body is not your enemy. It has never been your enemy. It is your most loyal ally, and it has been doing its absolute best to keep you alive under whatever conditions you have given it. When you gave it too much food, it stored the excess to protect you from future famine. When you gave it too little food, it slowed your metabolism to protect you from starvation. When you demanded extreme performance without adequate recovery, it broke down to force you to rest. Everything your body has ever done has been in service of your survival. The moment you start working with that intelligence instead of against it, everything changes. That is the critique of extreme weight loss in its most fundamental form. It is not a critique of Paddy's toughness. It is not a critique of his work ethic. It is a critique of a method that treats the body as an obstacle to be overcome rather than a system to be optimized. And it is a warning to everyone who watches that method and thinks the only variable standing between them and that transformation is willpower. Because it is not. The variable is knowledge. And now you have it. So here is your challenge. Not next Monday. Not after the holidays. Not when life calms down. Because life does not calm down. And you know that, and I know that. Today. Right now. After this speech ends. I want you to do one thing. One thing. Drink a glass of water. Put on your shoes and walk for 20 minutes. Eat your next meal with protein as the centerpiece. Go to sleep 30 minutes earlier tonight. Pick one. Just one. And do it. Not because it will transform your body today, but because it will begin the process of becoming someone who does these things. And identity precedes transformation. You do not transform and then become disciplined. You become disciplined, and then you transform. The version of you that is strong, vital, capable, and healthy is not a fantasy. It is not reserved for the genetically gifted or the professionally coached or the financially privileged. It is available to you. It has always been available to you. It is assembled. one consistent decision at a time, over a period of months and years, in the quiet moments when nobody is watching and no camera is rolling and no weigh-in is scheduled. You are the driver of the most remarkable vehicle ever built. You are sitting in the seat of something that can run marathons, lift heavy objects, heal wounds, fight disease, create life, and outlast almost any adversity you care to test it against, if you give it what it needs and stop abusing it in the name of speed. Paddy the Baddy is an extraordinary fighter. But even extraordinary fighters can teach us what not to do. And what not to do is sacrifice your long-term health for a short-term number on a scale. What not to do is dehydrate your brain and starve your muscles and call it discipline. What not to do is treat your body like an inconvenience to be managed rather than an instrument to be tuned. Now get up, make the decision, start today. Your body has been waiting for this moment for a long time, and it is ready when you are. The question is, are you ready?